Avengers Endgame is a 2019 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics superhero team, the Avengers. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studio Motion Pictures, is a direct sequel to Avengers Infinity War in 2018 and the 22nd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Directed by Anthony and Joe Russo and written by Christopher Markus and Stephen McFeely, the film features an ensemble cast. In the film, the surviving members of the Avengers and their allies attempt to reverse the destruction caused by Thanos in Infinity War. The film was announced in October 2014 as Avengers Infinity War Part 2, but Marvel later removed this title. The Russo brothers joined as directors in April 2015, with Markus and McFeely signing on to write the script a month later. The film serves as a conclusion to the story of the MCU up to that point, ending the story arcs for several main characters. The plot revisits several moments from earlier films, bringing back actors and settings from throughout the franchise. Filming began in August of 2017 at Pinewood Atlanta Studios in Fayette County in Georgia, shooting back-to-back with Infinity War, and ended in January 2018. Additional filming took place at the Metro and downtown Atlanta areas, the state of New York, Scotland, and England. The official title was revealed in December of 2018. With an estimated budget of $356 to $400 million, the film is one of the most expensive films ever made. Avengers Endgame premiered in Los Angeles on April 22, 2019, and was released in the United States on April 26 as part of Phase 3 of the MCU. The film received praise for its direction, acting, musical score, action sequences, visual effects, and emotional weight, with critics lauding its culmination of the 22-film story. The film grossed $2.798 billion worldwide, surpassing Infinity War's entire theatrical run in just 11 days and breaking numerous box office records, including becoming the highest-grossing film of all time from July 2019 until March 2021. It received nominations for Best Visual Effects at the 92nd Academy Awards, among numerous other accolades. A fifth and sixth films, Avengers The Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars, are scheduled to be released in 2025 and 2026. The main cast includes Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark Iron Man. According to directors Joe and Anthony Russo, Downey was the only actor to receive the entire screenplay for the film. Screenwriters Markus and McFeely knew that Stark's death was inevitable, and both as a move to selflessness as an end to the chapter Stark started. They felt that death was earned after granting him the perfect retirement life, adding that the life he's been striving for. They got married, they had a kid, it was great, it's a good death. It doesn't feel like a tragedy, it feels like a heroic, finished life. Joe Russo explained that Stark always knew he was going to die because he could never reconcile the notion in himself of not protecting the universe, and added that Stark was the most defiant among the Avengers. Stark is the most formidable of all of them because of his heart. The Russos sought Downey's approval for Stark's arc, which they had developed since Captain America Civil War in 2016. Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, Captain America. Markus described Rogers as someone who is moving towards some sort of enlightened self-interest. McFeely knew Rogers was going to get his dance. He promised Peggy Carter in Captain America the First Avenger, with McFeely said that Rogers postponed a life to fulfill his duty, and McFeely didn't think they were ever going to kill him, which is not Rogers' story arc. Instead, Rogers' arc was finally to get him to put his shield down. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, Hulk. In this film, Banner has managed to balance his two sides with gamma experimentation, enabling him to combine his intelligence with Hulk's strength and physical stature based on Professor Hulk comic book identity. Compared to the other heroes who are demotivated by their loss against Thanos, Banner is the only character to remain hopeful, with Anthony Russo explaining, Banner is the sole character who's actually forging a bright new future, trying to build something totally new and find something completely new. Banner is one who's most heroic in the sense that he maintains his will to keep trying. Chris Hemsworth as Thor. In the film, Thor has become overweight, drunken ruler of Asgard's refugees in Tonsberg, Norway. Referencing his drastic character change, Hemsworth said, I just had an opinion. I wanted to do something different this time. Each film I've wanted to, in particular the last couple, and they were on board. And he added, we shot for many hours and days and discussed how far we could push Thor and what we could do different. Anthony Russo added, even though there's a lot of fun to be had in the movie with his physical condition, it's not a gag, it's a manifestation of where his character level is, and we think it's one of the most relatable aspects of him. I mean, he is a very common sort of response to depression and pain. Thor's story was his favourite arc, saying, part of Chris's magic as a comedic actor is his dedication to the depth of the character on a very earnest level. It's so devious and submersive when a comedy is coming from a place of complete commitment and emotional complexity. Hemsworth underwent 3 hours of hair and makeup for the transformation, which also required him to wear a huge silicone prosthetic suit. He called himself Lebowski Thor on set. Initially Thor was supposed to revert his old chiseled self in the middle of Endgame, but Hemsworth successfully argued in favour of retaining Thor's new physique. Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff, or Black Widow. At the beginning of the film, Romanoff continues to command several teams from around the galaxy in the Avengers headquarters, which Joe Russo explained stemmed from her inability to move on from their failure to stop Thanos, saying she's doing everything she can now to try and hold the community together. She's the watcher on the wall still. On the decision Romanoff to sacrifice herself for Barton to acquire the Soul Stone to bring back everyone, Joe Russo stated that was part of the larger theme of exploring desire to sacrifice, and compared her desire to protect the Infinity War. He says, when she gets that Soul Stone scene, I think she understands that the only way to bring the community back is to sacrifice herself. McFeely stated, her journey in our minds had come to an end if she could get the Avengers back together. She comes from such an abusive, terrible mind control background, so when she gets to Vormir and she has a chance to get the family back, that's the thing she would trade for. Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton, or Hawkeye. McFeely described Barton's dark turn as a good example of people who had much stronger stories after the snap. The film's cold open, which features the disintegration of Barton's family, was initially supposed to be an Infinity War following Thanos' snap. However, it was moved to Endgame instead, with Markus explaining that it was a good way to bluntly and brutally show you what Thanos did. Joe Russo felt it was a very tragic scene to open the movie with. It's one of those few scenes in the movie that actually makes me tear up when I watch it, because I think of my own family, and you think about what could happen to you as a father. You'd become very self-destructive. Karen Gillan as Nebula, the adopted daughter of Thanos, an Avenger who was raised with Gamora as siblings. After previously being featured as an antagonist or an anti-hero in the previous MCU films, Nebula undergoes a redemption arc in this film, which she makes amends for her past actions, including an encounter with a past version of herself. Gillian added she is staring at her former self in the face, and it's really clear how far she's come from that anger, bitter and twisted person. She's starting to connect with other people and find some level of forgiveness. And Josh Brolin as Thanos, the intergalactic warlord from Titan, who Infinity War acquired all 6 Infinity Stones and triggered the snap, killing half of all life in the universe. Joe Russo said that after Thanos was successful in Avengers Infinity War, he was now done. He did it. He retired. Markus and McFeely had difficulty in factoring the older post-Infinity War Thanos into the film due to the characters already possessing the Infinity Stones, until executive producer Trinh Tran suggested that they kill Thanos in the film's first act. Markus explained that the character's early death is reinforced that Thanos' agenda. He was done. It was like, if I've got to die, I'm going to die now. Thanos has less screen time in Endgame than in Infinity War, where he's considered the main character, as explained by McFeely. We had to give ourselves permissions to backseat the villain a little bit. I don't think anyone in the first half of the movie is going, oh, I wish there was a villain. You're rolling around in the loss and the time heist, and you think it's sort of the Avengers against nature. Now, what more can I say about Avengers Endgame? Albeit maybe more predictable than, say, Infinity War was, which really just blew me away at the time. Endgame, of course, is the perfect conclusion to the story arc within the MCU universe, which took 22 films to get to, which in itself is an impressive feat that the writers had the patience and the ideas to keep the story going for 11 years, something that had never been done in cinema history before. And I think that in there alone lies the impressive nature of what the MCU has created. A singular story arc that has run through multiple films, multiple characters, all coming to a conclusion in this one massive, huge, epic finale. The film is exciting, it's entertaining, and it's emotionally impactful. And it certainly delivers a satisfying finale, if what's somewhat predictable, to this fantastic universe. The Russo brothers just got the MCU perfectly, and there couldn't have been a better director's choice in order to make this film work perfectly like it does. And I love how they collectively bring all the characters from all the films together for one last victory lap, if you will. For me, this is big budget action filmmaking at its absolute best, but what really makes it work is the fantastic story that they've carried throughout these series. And the actors, of course, from Downey, Ruffalo, Evans, Hemsworth, Brolin, and Paul Rudd all perform their roles absolutely perfectly, as they just get them so well. The film is very long, but then what would you expect? It is this massive finale at the end of the day. Now, obviously, having the highly emotional parts of the film, like Iron Man dying at the end, the shocking death of Black Widow, and of course Captain America finally laying down his shield, were highly emotional, as you'd come to know these characters so well over the past few years. But in the same breath, though, it was a fitting conclusion to this epic saga. You had to have some sort of finality to this. And I felt this was done with poise and reflection rather than in a sentimental manner. It was done perfectly and just with the right amount of emotion. Personally, I might be in the minority here. I did prefer Infinity Wars. It just blew me away from as a film, as it was just so unpredictable and such a shock ending. Where this one I went into the film knowing full well the good guys would prevail in the end. In saying that though, this is an emotionally resonant film, especially if you followed the MCU from its start in Iron Man in 2008, and I felt this was an epic, perfect conclusion to this wonderful, phenomenal series of films that have combined so many different aspects and really come together quite perfectly. A fitting end to this story arc of the MCU. Avengers Endgame gets a 9 out of 10.